Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really happy to be here. I really enjoy whenever I get to come over and do a talk at 40 plus. And so today is my first time doing a virtual talk for you guys. So I hope you enjoy it just as much as normal. So I'm going to get started and share my screen and hopefully not have any issues there. Let's see. Okay, can everybody see my screen here?
Yes.
Yes.
I can see it.
Okay. Does it seem like everything is going okay? All right, so today I'm going to be talking to you about mindset strategies and how to end self-sabotage and find your ideal job or create your ideal life. So who here wants to find your ideal job? Go ahead and put that in the chat for me if you are looking to find your ideal job. My question, who wants to find your ideal job? And I'm guessing that everyone does because that's why you're here today. So that's one of the things that I'm going to definitely be talking to you about. And my next question is, who wants to make that process faster and easier? And I'm guessing the answer to that also is everyone, which is why you're here today. My intention is to shed some light on this subject to you, and I'm going to identify some ways that you could be actually completely destroying your career search and not even realizing that you're doing that. And I'm going to share some strategies that will help you stop undermining your efforts. So now that you know what I'm going to be sharing with you today and what I'm going to be giving you today, I want to let you know what I'm not going to be giving you. I'm not going to give you the nuts and bolts of job search because actually that's not really what I do as a life coach. I'm not a career coach. And I'm sure that you're getting that information already, which was discussed in the course that is offered by 40 plus. So we're not going to go into resumes or leveraging LinkedIn or interview process or anything like that. What I'm going to be talking to you about with you today is going to be something just a little bit different. So let's get to the agenda. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of my background and how I came to be doing this work. And then I'm going to go into the 4 main objectives or takeaways that I want you to leave with today. Then we'll talk some about mindset, and I will tell you how to basically flip the switch on your mindset and give you some strategies that can help you during your job search at any time, but particularly now during the difficult times that we're going through with this pandemic and all the things that are happening now. So these strategies can be used not just in helping you change your mindset for finding your ideal job or creating your ideal life, but they can really help you with changing your mindset for everything that you're going to be doing. So our objectives today. The first objective is basically I want you to shift your mindset. And by shifting your mindset, I mean I want you to think of this period as a period of transition and a period of opportunity. And yes, I did mean to say that, opportunity. I know it seems like it's a little crazy and hard to believe that you could think of this as a period of opportunity, but you really can, because at this point, with everything that's going on, we actually have some time. We have time to slow down, even though we may not want to, but we do have the time to slow down and really think about what our next steps are, what we want to do with our lives, with our jobs, with our careers. And that's very valuable and something that we can definitely that we can use. And you can use these strategies, again, not just for finding your ideal job, but for creating your ideal life. The second objective that I have for you is I want you to update your program. And by program, I'm talking about the program that runs through your mind. You can think of your brain like it's a computer. And just like you have apps on your laptop or apps on your telephone, on your mobile phone, you have those things going in your brain as well. A lot of time those apps you have apps that run in the foreground that you might be paying attention to, like right now, PowerPoint is what we're looking at. But then there are all these apps that will run in the background, and sometimes you don't even realize they're running. And those apps that run in the background of your mind are things like negative self-talk. You're talking and saying things to yourself in your head. You don't even realize what you're saying or how you're saying it, but it's flowing into your subconscious, and then you're acting on those things that you're saying. So we're going to look at some various things that we're doing, and you'll see some ways that you may need to update your program. You may need to actually delete those apps from your brain that have been running, or maybe you need to just update them and bring in some new, fresh ideas. So that's number two. And the third thing I want you to do today is I want you to believe that it is actually possible to create your ideal job, to create your ideal life. And we're going to talk about how we do that, how you get to the point where you believe that it's possible to do that. And the final thing is I want you to be committed. I want you to be committed to the process. I want you to be committed to take action, because if you don't take action, none of the other stuff matters. That's the final thing that you have to do. But the thing that I want you to note the difference between just taking any action and taking what I like to call inspired action. Inspired action is action that basically comes from your higher power, your GPS guidance system, your intuition, whatever you'd like to call it. Because as we know, there are probably 100 or 1,000 actions that we could take to get anything done. But the point is, you've got to find the right action for you, and you've got to do what works best for you. Just because someone else has done it or wrote about it in a book does not mean that that's exactly the way to go about the process for you. So part of what I want to talk to you about today is being able to go in and figure out the best strategies and the best approaches for you to take to make things work for you. So let's dig right into it and get down to mindset. Basically, mindset is a collection of beliefs and thoughts that create a person's mental attitude, inclination, or predominant disposition. And did you know that your mindset can basically make or break you? Our minds are very, very powerful, and our thoughts control pretty much everything that happens to us, everything that we do, from raising and lowering our blood pressure and heart rate to making us go to sleep or stay awake at night, like I did. I was up way, way, way too late. Thoughts can make you feel happy, they can make you feel sad, they can make you feel confident, they can make you feel insecure, lots of things. So mindset is really very important, and it's really important what you think about, because your thoughts, your inner thoughts create what comes out, and your thoughts can attract people, ideas, opportunities, and circumstances to your life. And you want to make sure that whatever you're attracting into your life are aligning with what you want. Because if they're not aligning with what you want, that means that you're thinking some things that you probably shouldn't be thinking. So when we talk about mindset, you probably heard these terms before: the fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And with that, the fixed mindset is a mindset where the person believes that they've got traits that can't change. People tend to document their intelligence and their talents rather than working to develop and improve them. Whereas the difference with a growth mindset, that person believes that they can control their ability to be successful by working to develop their skills and talents and by growing them. So I have here some ways that you can adapt more of a growth mindset. And basically, it's really retraining your brain or retraining your mind. So the first thing that you want to do is you really want to choose your thoughts very carefully. You know, what are you thinking about on a daily basis? You know, are you thinking that you can find your ideal job and that you can have your ideal life? Are you thinking positive thoughts? Those things really matter because, like I said, whatever you think, you actually end up attracting to you. So how your life looks now is basically a culmination of what you put into your mind and what you've brought to fruition. The other thing that you want to do is you want to examine your beliefs and your worldview. You know, what do you believe about life in general and how the world works? What do you know, do you see life as being something positive and wonderful, or do you see life as being hard, difficult, you know, fraught with challenges and those kinds of things? And if that's the way that you're looking at life, then you might want to stop and consider maybe changing your perspective on that, because if you see life as being hard and challenging and difficult, then basically that's what life is going to give you. Lots of difficulties and lots of challenges. The other thing that you want to do is you want to put an end to negative self-talk. As I said, you know, our brains are like computers. We've all got these various programs and apps running in there all the time. And some of those apps come out in the form of how we actually talk to ourselves. And a lot of times the way that we talk to ourselves and the things that we're saying in our own minds are things that we would never, ever dare say to anyone else. They are things that certainly we would not say to our loved ones and people that we care about, or even our coworkers and colleagues. But we say those things to ourselves all the time, and we say them so much sometimes that we don't even realize that we're doing it. And as we're having this negative self-talk, this inner dialogue with ourselves, we're starting to subconsciously take all of that in and we act on those things. We create the things that we're constantly talking to ourselves about and thinking about with ourselves. So that's one of the things that we have to do. And then the other thing is we want to create a vision for our future. That's a way to create a growth mindset, because basically the vision or the dream is where you start. You know, before you can put a plan together and actually make it work, you've got to start with the initial vision. So what I'd like to do now is just have everyone just take out a piece of paper and just quickly write down some ideas of what your job, your ideal life looks like to you. So can we have folks do that? And then maybe what we can do is have a couple of people talk a little bit about how that looks. And as you're doing that, you know, what do you want that job to look and not just look like, but what do you want it to feel like? How do you want to feel when you wake up in the morning and you get ready to go to work? You know, what do you want to be going through your mind? So do we have anybody who's put some things in the chat?
JC Walker, who says, I'm looking for an entry-level position so that I can build side gigs to position myself to be more in control of my destiny. Less stressful position so I can devote some time to side gig development. Oh, very good. Side gigs.
Yeah.
So he's Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Anyone else?
We have Denise who says, I want to feel empowered and significant.
Wonderful, wonderful. And that's one of the keys is including how you want to feel. That's one of the keys to making it happen. Is including those feelings in there, not just visualizing it in your mind, but how do you really want to feel? Anyone else? I'll take one more and then we'll move on.
Yeah, we have Christina says a position with autonomy, but within a team environment to connect people and resources within and outside the organization.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. Autonomy is always a good thing. Nobody likes having someone stand over their shoulder and crack the whip on them all day. So thank you guys for responding. And that brings us to the next thing, which we're going to talk a little bit more about vision. So I have two great quotes here. One is from Jonathan Swift that says, vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others. So like I said, the vision starts within your own mind, what you're dreaming about. And, you know, sometimes you have a vision and you share it with someone and they just don't get it. That's okay. It's your vision. It's what you want it to be. And here's the thing. You can create that vision to look any way that you want it to look. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says about it or thinks about it or whether or not they understand it. It's yours to do whatever you want to do with it. I have another quote here, and the author is unknown, and it says, make your vision so clear that it has no choice but to manifest. And that's the key when you have a vision for yourself, is really getting clear on what it is you want and how you want your life to look, whether that's your job, you know, your family, just any aspect of your life. You got to be really, really clear on what you want, because basically the vision is kind of the start for you before you put the plan together. It's the start of what's going to be in that plan, that roadmap for you. And if you don't have a clear idea or a clear picture of where you want to go, you're not really going to get very far. I have a client who was the perfect example of this. The vision of her life was basically like many other people we know who've experienced this. Her vision was created by her parents. And they wanted her to go to college and get a certain type of professional job. They let her choose basically based on some ideas that they'd given her, and she ended up becoming an accountant. And she really didn't enjoy being an accountant, but she was very smart and she was very good at her job and she excelled in her career. And she hit about 45 and she realized it was just not what she ever wanted to do. And the reason that she stayed in that career for so long was because that was the expectation of her parents. And then as she excelled in her career and started to move further, then everyone just assumed, well, you know, you're a great accountant. So, you know, now you'll go and become a CPA and you'll do these other things and you'll manage people and you'll become a finance director and you'll continue to move up and move on in your career. And she did those things because it was kind of the expectation, but it really wasn't her vision that she had for herself. What she really wanted to do with her life is she really wanted to become a professional speaker and do professional storytelling, which was a more creative type of position that she wanted to have. So eventually what she decided to do was she left her corporate position, she left her accounting position, and she opened up a business where she was doing storytelling and working with children. And, you know, her family and friends and colleagues really didn't understand. And they thought she was completely crazy for doing this, but it was the best thing for her because it was really her vision. So once you get clear on what it is you want to do, the thing you have to ask yourself is, are you doing what you want, or are you following someone else's vision? You know, are you making sure that you're not just doing what's expected of you by society or your family or your colleagues? You're not just doing what you think is the easiest thing to do, or the only thing that you can do because of certain variables or factors that are happening in your life. Is it really what you want? So I'm going to go on to our next quick exercise here. And I have some clarity questions for you. And let's see if I can move that out of the way. Okay, now you can see them all. But if you can just take out that same sheet of paper and just ask yourself these questions to help you get some more clarity. So what really is your ideal job? And when I ask this question about your ideal job, I'm not just speaking of a specific position in, you know, a title. Oh, I'd like to be director of purchasing or something like that. But in your ideal job, what does that really look and feel like to you? What does your day look like? How are you interacting with your coworkers? What kind of culture does this job include? How much money are you making? What kind of benefits do you have? Do you work from home? Do you go into an office? Do you travel a lot? Do you not travel at all? All of those things are questions that should come out of what does your ideal job look like? The second question, why do you want that job? You know, your why is your motivator. And let's face it, you have to have motivation for doing something or you just won't do it. So what's your why? Why do you want that particular job to look that particular way? What are you getting out of it? How are you benefiting from it? Just as an example for myself, when I started off my career, I worked in the corporate environment in an area called supplier diversity. And I worked in that area for a very long time, but I got to a point after I had my son 13 years ago, I got to a point where I no longer wanted to do that. And I was much more interested in starting my own business and pursuing my own interest of coaching and helping people in that way. And my why was multifaceted. It was one, I really enjoyed helping people. So that's how why I started a coaching business. But also I needed, as a single mother, I needed not to travel so much. I needed to be more in charge of my schedule and how I was able to manage things. And at the time, I just couldn't do that. So talk about your why, you know, explore that. Then the third question is, do you believe that you can actually attain that ideal job or that ideal life you're looking for? And if you do, why do you believe that you can attain it? Or why don't you believe that you can attain it? Next, what do you believe about the current job market? And that's a real biggie. You know, there's a lot of things going on right now in the economy. There's a lot of things going on with the job market. You watch the news every day. We all see the stories of how things are looking. But getting past what's on the surface, what do you specifically believe about the job market and how that can affect you or not affect you? What do you believe about your age, your skills, your gender, your ethnicity as it relates to finding your ideal job or creating your ideal life? Do those things make a difference? Does it matter? And if so, in what way? And how can you get past the thinking if you feel that that's something that's keeping you from attaining that? Finally, what's been holding you back from finding your ideal job? So those are the things that I want you to consider and look at, and just put those down on a piece of paper. And for those who are interested, you can maybe put a couple of your answers in the chat box, and we can, share those really quickly as we continue to move forward here.
I'm not sure if you can respond to this, but my issue is that despite being 50 years old and having been trying to find out what I like to do or what my ideal job is, I'm struggling to figure that out, mostly because I think I don't believe I have the chance to find that job, or bigger fear is that I find it after lots of work only to find out that it's not what I expected or what I like.
Okay. Well, sometimes it takes a while to figure out what your purpose and your passions are. That's one of the things that I work with clients on. And over time, those things do change. And what I've learned in figuring that out, sometimes it takes some experimentation. And, we all have preconceived ideas about what certain jobs or careers would be like or look like. And I think probably at this point, everybody has at least once gone into something thinking it would look one way or be one way, and you get there and you go, oh, this is really not that much fun at all. Or it's just not what I thought it would be. So part of the whole process of figuring out your ideal job is you got to do some experimentation. You got to try certain things on for size. Some of them are going to fit and work, and you're going to be fine with it, and then others won't. And what you do is as you're trying things here, there, and everywhere, you take what works and you push away what doesn't. And that's basically the best way to know how that'll look. So that's just part of the process. So don't feel bad, if you will, that you've got to try on different things. So hopefully that answers your question.
And Renee, one thing I would like to add is that, that's going to happen a certain percentage of the time. It happened to me, actually. And I invested a lot of time. I got a lot of certifications. It just didn't turn out to be what I wanted. But what I found out of the experience is that I picked up a lot of new skills. And even though that job wasn't what I wanted, those skills that I picked up helped me in my next endeavor. So, I think we all sometimes talk ourselves into thinking it's an all or none sort of situation. But there can be a lot of growth out of and maybe even more so, out of a mistake.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There are always lessons that you can learn. And one of the things that I talk about, and I'll be talking about a little bit more in this presentation, is looking at whatever situation you're in as a learning opportunity and looking at finding the silver lining there, because there's always a little bit of a silver lining in there for everybody. So, if you find yourself in a position that you don't like, figure out the one or two things that you know that you can take with you. Maybe it's something that you've learned. Maybe it's a new skill. Maybe it's something that you've actually just learned about yourself. It could just be the fact that, hey, I learned I don't like doing this kind of work. And so I'm going to stop this now, and I'm not going to waste my time looking for jobs in this area anymore. So yeah, turn it into a positive as best you can. So anyone else?
I'm sorry, Renee, I was on mute. Yes.
No
I try to reduce the background noise, and it says, would you touch a little more on finding one's purpose?
Well, in finding one's purpose, everybody comes here with a purpose, and sometimes we don't know what it is. A lot of times you talk to people and hear things, and it's really wonderful when someone knows from the very beginning that they want to be a lawyer. For instance, I have a friend that I grew up with, and from the time that she was in second grade, I think she just knew that she wanted to be an attorney. And she is one now, and she's very good at it, and she's never deviated from that path, and it's been wonderful. I will just use myself as an example. I was one of those people who I have dibbled and dabbled into a lot of different things. And it took me a while to really figure out what it is I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And so it takes some time. It takes sitting down and really thinking and getting clarity on that. That's something that, again, I work with clients on all the time. And I take them through a series of various exercises to help them drill down to get there. There are lots of assessments and tests that people can use to do that, that are out there on the market, and I have some things too. But the whole point is to really sit down, get quiet, get still, and listen to your own voice and not the voices of other people who are out there. And things like some of these clarity questions, I have a whole list of them that I use for helping people find their purpose and figuring out what their passions are. Using tools like that is a great start. So anything else?
Oh, Renee, we got a lot. We got a lot coming in.
We got a lot coming in. Okay.
All right. I don't know. You just tell me when you want to stop. But we had another one says, as we get older, there are more health considerations. I find my limitations are sometimes about concerns for needing health care. What are some strategies to manage that?
Strategies to manage needing health care?
Well, I think it's the fear that needing that health care is probably creating. And Robin, if you can give us some clarification on that, it would be great.
Well, I think fear is something, and we'll just talk about in terms of fear. Fear is something that can really drive us. It can really drive us crazy, actually. And fear is one of those things. There's an acronym about fear that people use all the time. And of course, I can't think of it right now, but fear can kind of stop you in your tracks. And you don't want to let fear be the thing that makes you make certain choices. But certainly healthcare is a big issue. And certainly as we all get older, it's something that we definitely have to think about in what we are choosing as our ideal jobs. But, you know, just like anything else, there are ways to get health care without necessarily having to get a corporate job, if that's something that you're looking at. There are other ways to go about doing that. And so the whole thing that you want to do is just keep your options open and be open to other opportunities and start looking at things from a different perspective. So hopefully that can answer your question. I know you said we had a lot of questions, but I'm looking at the timing and I do have quite a few more slides to go through. So I'll cut off the questions now, but I can maybe take the questions afterwards and contact people afterwards to help answer some of those questions, or actually answer the questions after I finish the presentation, just so I make sure that I get all the information in.
Sounds great, Renee. We had one person typed into the text box or the chat box, fear, and the acronym stands for false evidence appearing real.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one. So I have two bonus questions here. And those two questions are, what am I willing to change, add, or let go to create this vision for myself? Sometimes the reason that you haven't realized your vision is because there's something that you have to do with your own thinking about that vision. How, you know, what do you have to change in your thoughts? What do you need to add? Maybe different perspectives, looking at things as opportunities and finding the positive in things. What do you need to maybe let go? Sometimes we have beliefs that we've had since childhood, and we get to a certain point in life and we realize that when we created those beliefs, way back when, they actually came from someone else. And maybe we needed them at that time to help us survive during that particular time. And maybe those beliefs are no longer serving us and we need to let those things go. So that's another question to ask yourself. What are you willing to change or let go? And also, what inspired action are you willing to take to make it happen? You know, sometimes we want things or we have a vision for ourselves, but when it's time for us to really take the action to make it happen, we don't really want to do that. You know, we don't really want to maybe go back to school and get that degree or take those classes or do the things that are necessary. And that's okay, because part of the process of figuring out your vision and coming up with your ideal life is you got to figure out what you're willing to do to make it happen. And there may just be some things that you're not willing to do to make it happen. Did I see a hand raise or no? Okay. So when you wrote your vision a little while ago, I asked you to write down your vision for what your ideal job looked like. I would ask you to go back now that you have seen these questions, and we won't do it here today because we're kind of running out of time, but I'd ask you at some point after this presentation to go back, answer those questions, peel back the layers of the onion, answer them again and answer them again, and then rewrite your vision, for what your ideal job or your ideal life looks like. And when you do that, see if there's a change between what you wrote the first time and what you'll write the second or third time after you've asked yourself some of these questions to help clarify things for yourself. So now I want to get into some specific mindset strategies to help you thrive. As we've said, this right now is an extraordinary time on so many different levels. It's really crazy what's happening out in the world today. And just, you know, managing your stress and managing to not be completely overwhelmed by it all can be a challenge. And when you throw in the fact that you or maybe searching for a job or looking for a new job, that makes it even more challenging and more stressful. So I want to leave you with some tips and some strategies on just how you can do some things to help yourself not be quite as stressed during this time. So the first thing is, I want you to create a plan. And this plan is going to, it doesn't have to be like a big, huge document or anything, but just write down some ideas every day of how you're going to get through your day to make it easier for you. And I'm giving you here this example. I have a morning routine and an evening routine. This is something that I do for myself and I share with my clients all the time. So I will start my day off with prayer and meditation. If that's not your thing, that's okay. You don't have to do that. It's just an example. Sometimes I'll do some journal writing. And one of the things that I always do is I make sure that I make note of what I'm grateful for. I think that's always a great way to start the day. And no matter how difficult things are, there's always something that you can find, some little tiny silver lining that you can find of gratitude. And I find that by writing those things down, or even if I don't have time to write them, even if I'm just walking around the house and just speaking them out, it helps me to get myself in a more positive mindset, because I see that there is something good somewhere, no matter what's going on around me. The next thing is some type of exercise or movement to get the blood flowing. It helps to relax you, and we all know the benefits of exercise. So even if it's just taking a walk down the block or just doing some stretching or what have you, that's always helpful. In the morning, I tend to be a person who eats breakfast, and trying to eat a healthy breakfast or healthy meals throughout the day is also helpful. And I put that right into my plan, so that I'm mindful of what I'm doing. Then in your case, your actual job search activities or your work activities, excuse me, that you're going to be doing throughout the day. Put that into your plan. And even if you really want to get structured and specific with it, even add in times. How much time are you going to spend on this part of it? How much time are you going to spend on that part of it? And the other thing that I include in my routine is any relaxation or downtime that I'm going to take. And the reason I do that sometimes is if I decide in the middle of the day that I'm going to go and do some things that are not necessarily work related to help myself relax, I might get to enjoying my relaxation and downtime too much that I'm not working. So giving myself an hour or 30 minutes to do something, and then saying, okay, at this time I'm going to come back to work and I'll go back and relax and do some fun things again later. Excuse me, that just helps me to stay on track and stay focused. Finally, for the evening routine, what I like to do is go back over my day and review whatever goals that I may have set for myself. And I mean, those goals don't have to be anything really major. The goal could just be, I wanted to make sure that I wash the dishes or clean the closet out or something like that. Whatever goals you have for yourself, just take a look at those and see how they went. Note any wins that you had for the day. Pat yourself on the back for getting through those things that you set as goals for yourself. And particularly right now, whatever that is that you feel is a win. Maybe it was just being able to get up and turn on your laptop and come to this Zoom class this morning. Or maybe it was just being able to get up and put on clean clothes and brush your teeth and comb your hair and have a pleasant and productive day, whatever that looks like for you. And finally, the next thing you want to do with your evening routine is you want to make sure that you do some type of plan for the next day, so that as you're going into your next day, you already know generally what you're going to be doing, or you have some idea of what you want to accomplish at that time. So the next strategy is to be mindful, to stay present, stay focused on what's happening in the now. Sometimes we get really carried away and we start projecting way off into the future, and then we start coming up with reasons why things aren't going to work or can't work, and we can't do this or can't do that, and we come up with these scenarios. I have a elderly relative in my family who comes up with doomsday scenarios all the time. It's never ever going to go well. She always comes up with a reason for it not to, and more often than not, she's wrong. So stay present, stay focused on what's happening in the now. Don't project out into the future, and that helps you a lot with keeping your mind focused and on track. Also, be careful of who and what you let into your mind, into your life. Family and friends, sometimes they mean well, but they can sometimes be negative. They can be dealing with their own fears and anxieties. They can give you advice that's not necessarily helpful. So, that's fine that you have relationships with those people and continue to have those relationships with those people. But sometimes you have to recognize that, hey, I got to cut back a little bit. Maybe we don't have as many conversations. And maybe when the conversation starts going in a particular direction, I redirect. And if I'm unable to redirect, we end that phone call or we end that conversation. one of the things that I have done to stay more mindful and less stressed and focused is I have cut way, way back on media and social media. I don't watch the news nearly as much as I did weeks ago when this pandemic first started, and I don't do as much social media anymore either because it is very stressful. It's overwhelming, and it's just this constant thing with the 24-hour news cycle just coming at you all the time. And so backing away from that has helped me a lot. One, I've gotten a lot of time back in my schedule and in my day because I'm not sitting in front of the TV all day, but it's also helped me with my mindset and just staying much more positive and much more hopeful. Again, we talked about negative self-talk earlier, but I want to just remind you to watch what you're saying to yourself. If you don't think that you would say it to someone else, then you probably shouldn't say it to yourself either. So just make sure you're being careful about the things that you're saying to yourself, and just allow yourself to listen to your words and see what you're talking about. And finally, cut yourself some slack. These are difficult times. These are stressful times for everybody. And if you don't meet all of your goals for the day, if you can't stick to what you're doing, it's okay. Just cut yourself some slack. If you find yourself having some negative self-talk, that's okay to cut yourself some slack and recognize that, oh, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to stop and just take the fact that you've recognized and become aware that you're doing it, and now I have a plan of action to make that stop. So those are some of the things that you can do to help you with your mindset. And finally, the thing that I want to talk about is having connection and support. So everybody is Zooming these days and meeting virtually, and you've got the happy hours and you've got all these different things going on, and those are wonderful. Having some sense of connection and support, especially for those people like me who are, during this time, you're stuck in the house and you're alone. My 13-year-old son happens to be staying over at his dad's house during this time. So I'm at the house by myself, and it can get very, very lonely, especially when you're not really able to go out like we normally have been. So having someone there to help you and give you support is much needed, probably now much more so than it ever has been. I mean, the thing that we all know is that when you're going through a career search or a job search at any time, it's stressful, it's very emotional, it can be very emotional, and there are lots of challenges. As we know, the way we find jobs and get jobs now is so different than how it used to be just, say, 10 or 15 years ago. The whole process is different and has changed, and that can be really overwhelming too. I have a coaching colleague who actually specializes in grief counseling, and she tells me and her clients that the loss of a job, for whatever reason, can cause both psychological and emotional trauma for people. And people tend to discount that or minimize that a lot, and they just try to push those feelings away. But that's really something that you should take a look at and acknowledge how you're feeling. It can be a sad time for you. It can be something that makes you not feel so good. And it's okay to acknowledge that. But the thing is, you don't want to stay in that place where you're not feeling so good. So you want to get the kind of connection through groups like 40 Plus, maybe hire a coach if that's what you need, reach out to other networking groups and things like that to get that connection into your life. And that actually concludes my presentation for today, which I think is just about right on time. It's 10:58. So I thank you guys for having me here and for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about this and share this information with you. Karen says, regarding finding one's purpose, she highly recommends Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. It is full wisdom, and although the title references artists, it's truly a life handbook. I would have to agree with you on that, Karen. For many years, and I don't do this anymore, I just thought about it this morning that I want to start back. In that book, The Artist's Way, Julia does something called morning pages, which is kind of a stream of consciousness writing when you first wake up. And I really like that process because it's a great way to continue getting clarity and to continue figuring out and peeling back those layers of the onion that I talked about before and getting information about yourself and where you want to go. So I think that's an excellent, excellent suggestion to get that book. Let's see. Emery says, I've had landmines blow up on me in the form of toxic managers. I think that is shaping my pessimism as well as other factors. The lack of response to numerous applications for positions I've qualified for. You can't always predict that or see the toxicity before you start. No, you can't, unfortunately. What you can do in those kinds of situations, because I've had some yucky managers over the years myself, and what I have learned to do is to take away, to work on myself, to take away that fear of encountering another one of those toxic type managers or toxic situations. And I've done quite a number of exercises and things over the years so that when I go to that interview, or even when even before I get to the interview process, just going with the mindset that I'm not going to encounter that type of person this time around. It's going to be a different situation. That actually helps a lot, just dealing with that change of your own mindset, because like I said before, what you think you end up attracting to you. And so if you're thinking that you're going to encounter this toxicity again, most likely that's what you're going to step right back into. Let's see. Christina says, her why, I know that I have a lot of skills and experience to share while I'm very interested in learning new things. That's why I want to work in an innovative, focused organization. And that's wonderful. Knowing your why is so important, and making sure that it's actually your why, which is what I talked a little bit about earlier. It looks like it's Nana says, my ideal job is to create inviting spaces through home decor and interior design. I would like to ultimately have a line of home accents. I want this type of role because this seems to be the only thing that comes natural to me, and I find myself spending a lot of time looking at interior design and architecture. The challenge is that I have no skills, experience, or education in this field of work, and not sure where to start to understand how to create your own furniture. Well, I would suggest that you do some research and basically just start with the Google and go out and do some research. I believe that I met someone through 40 Plus a while back who was creating furniture. If I find her information, I will be more than happy to share it with you. I'm not sure I still have it, but there are lots of artists out there that do that kind of thing. So I would say do some research and start off by finding who those people are, and just reach out to them and see if you can talk to them and do some informational interviews and figure out what they're doing and how they got into doing it. As we know, everyone out there does not necessarily have a degree in a particular field or area just to have a job and be successful in that area. So there may be some other opportunities for you to look at, and there may be some creative ways that you can get into that area that maybe are not quite so standard. Let's see. Fear, false evidence appearing real. Thank you, thank you. Let's see. Let's see, Christina Foster says, if you're thinking of a new career and want to explore, she recommends volunteering to learn more. And that is a great recommendation, and suggesting volunteering is always a wonderful way to learn more if you can fit it into your schedule and if you can do it. I've also learned that there are even internships now for some older workers, so not just the young college kids. So there could be a possibility of getting an internship, and some of those internships are actually paid internships. So that's something to consider and look into as well. Let's see. Another acronym for fear is facing everything and rising. That was the one that I was actually trying to think of, but I just couldn't. So thank you for that also. Let's see. Will Renee share her slides at the conclusion? Yes, I will share my slides. I've actually already sent them over to Jeffrey and some of the other folks at 40 Plus. So you all should be able to get a copy. I think they're going to be sending that out. Is that correct?
That's correct, Renee, for people who request it.
Okay, okay. And let's see. I got another one from Karen. She says, shift the words, these are challenging times, to these are changing times. Karen, you're absolutely correct. They are definitely changing times, and it puts a much more positive spin on that. She says, it takes some of the negative stress out of the situation and lets you know we just need to adapt, which humans have been doing since the beginning of time. That is absolutely correct. Galaxy A20 says, real talk about being careful on who you let in. Jan says, excellent presentation. Thank you, Jan. Very helpful from Robin. Thank you. Thank you, Renee. And 40 Plus from Christina. So I think that I've got a lot of thank yous and those kinds of things here. So I think that pretty much covers any of the questions. And with my presentation, you all will have my information.
Renee, there was one more question, at least one more question that you didn't answer that I would hope that you can address. And,
okay.
And what are some of the techniques, if you can share some techniques with us, for overcoming negative self-talk? What are some things we can do?
The first thing that we can do to overcome negative self-talk is to first be aware that we're doing it. More often than not, we've done it for so long and we do it so often that we don't even realize we're doing it anymore. You know, the chatter is just going on in your head constantly, and it's happening and you don't even recognize that you're doing it. So the first thing is to get some type of awareness that you're doing it. And when you become aware that you're doing it, don't beat up on yourself for doing it. You know, it's just something that's been happening. We all do it, but now you know. And when you stop, just kind of take a step back and pause and look at it and say, wow, I really just said that to myself. Why would I say that? Where is that coming from? And that's the next thing that I do is I kind of sit with what I'm saying and do a little digging to unearth where are those thoughts and beliefs coming from? Why am I saying those things to myself? You know, what can I do to change them? And then trying to come up with putting a more positive spin on it, and figuring out a way to change those thoughts into something that's much more positive.
Renee, we have another one from Dawn. Sometimes I feel inundated by the many messages and offerings that are designed to help us get through COVID. And that doesn't sound like a question. I feel inundated. Well, what are you doing when you're inundated with all these things and you just want to be, let alone?
Yeah, that overwhelm can really be a lot. So for me, what I've done, like I mentioned in my presentation, is I have gotten off of a lot of the social media. I'll go and check it every now and then. I'm not watching the news as much as I used to. I'm limiting that very much. But when you're inundated with those messages, where are you getting the messages from? Or things popping up in your email? Block it, delete it, send it to another folder in your email so you don't have to see it all at once. Just be very careful about where the messages are coming from, and then limit yourself in going to that place, maybe permanently or maybe just temporarily while this is happening. But that's probably one of the best ways I found to do it. Let's see, I've got something. Carol Clark says 40 plus told her to get new friends. Find affirmation evaluation was very helpful, Carol. Yeah, sometimes you do have to get new friends, because as you change your thinking and your beliefs and change your mindset, sometimes you find that the people who were in your life previously just are no longer a good fit for you. It doesn't have to be a big dramatic thing, but you will find that as you start to grow and change, a lot of those people who are no longer aligned to you, they just kind of fade out on their own. And sometimes you don't even realize it. You just wake up one day and realize, wow, I haven't talked to Sally or Joe in really months or years, and I don't know what happened to them. And it just kind of works itself out that way. So sometimes that's a positive thing. And she says, find affirmation. And I will say affirmations are one of the tools that I use a lot in helping me to change my mindset and my thinking, starting with affirmations. And affirmations can be a little bit tricky, because if you are somewhere over here in the negative and you try to go all the way over here to the positive, the affirmation will feel phony and fake when you're saying it. So if you're using affirmations to help change your mindset, just kind of take it gradually before you try to swing from being over here to all the way over there. But affirmations can be very helpful. I write them on my bathroom mirror a lot of times, and I find them to be very helpful as I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, and I kind of recite them and go over them. It's another good way to positively start my day and sort of kick it off.
Renee, can you share with us the difference between an affirmation and, say, showing gratitude? Because I know that I personally, when I'm getting down, I like to look at all the things that I can be thankful for. And oftentimes when I do that list, I find that there's a lot more things that I'm happy about than the one or two things that I'm unhappy about. And
right.
So, but what's the difference between an exercise on gratitude and an exercise on affirmation?
Okay. Well, like you said, the gratitude are just things that you are happy about or feel appreciative of having in your life. My gratitude for today is I'm grateful that the sun is shining right now because it was raining for the last 2 days. But an affirmation is more of a positive statement affirming something that you want into your life. One that I use all the time is I am healthy and I'm whole. And last year I had some major health challenges that I was dealing with. And so that was one that I spoke all the time. I am healthy and I'm well and I'm whole. And sometimes if you're really sick, that may be a little bit too much to say, I'm healthy and I'm whole. But you can maybe say, I am willing to open myself up to good health and wholeness. Or, you can change the wording so that it doesn't feel phony to you. Because part of having the affirmation work is you've got to believe it for it to actually make a difference. If you're saying things and you don't really believe them, you're just saying words and it doesn't matter. And so a lot of times people will say, excuse me, I tried affirmations, they didn't work. It's because they're saying things that they don't believe you. And sometimes you have to take it progressively as opposed to making just one giant shift with something.
Not seeing anything. I want to thank you again so much for being with us today. It was a very helpful and productive presentation. And
well,
I think
thank you for having me. Thank you.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We'll have you back again.
Okay, great.
All right.
If anybody does have questions that they want to ask me, when they get the presentation, my contact information is on the back. So feel free to just shoot me an email and I will be more than happy to answer those questions.
Thank you so much. Again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll be back again next Monday morning at 10 o'clock. Everyone have a great day and good luck with your job searches. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You as well.